Welcome to Small Biz Life, Episode 1.
Today's topic, profit, because that's why we're in small business after all. Does this sound familiar?
Oh my God, I have so much to do today.
Don't forget to breathe.
But I have almost 400 emails in my inbox and 30 phone calls to make.
Have you looked into getting a virtual assistant yet?
Oh, and I need to schedule all my social media posts.
Did you drink anything today?
I had coffee.
Did you eat today?
Did I mention coffee's a bean?
This is Small Biz Life. Welcome to Small Biz Life. This is our first actual episode, and today we plan to talk about profit. I think it's very important to keep profit in mind when you're making a show or running your business.
No, I completely agree. So this week we're going to start with what hit us in the news this week. What'd you find in the news this week, Jeffrey?
As usual, it's a fairly quiet week for small business in the tech community. However, I saw one article that really made me think about small business and in general. It was Amazon basically axes the Fire Phone.
Oh, no more Fire Phone.
No more Fire Phone. Your phones only feel like they're on fire because the batteries are so crappy. Really, the reason for me that this seems important is I think it's something we struggle with, especially when we're small online businesses, or really any small business struggles with, is when you get rid of something that isn't making money. It's not reaching your expectation. Obviously, they've tweaked around with it. I think they've had 2 versions of the phone at this point. And they've just decided it's not going the way they want it to. So they got rid of it. And I think that's something that we should all keep in mind. And maybe we use stuff differently when we're smaller. Like, say, I'm trying to sell my big book on business and no one's buying it. Maybe I start using it as a free giveaway. Maybe I find some other use for it rather than spending the time and energy to turn this into the next big product that obviously I've not been able to get the audience to agree with me on.
Yeah, I actually I recommended something similar a couple weeks ago with somebody I was talking to. They had ordered a whole bunch of a product and it wasn't selling. And so I said, well, you have a coaching program. Why don't you give it away for free when somebody signs up for the coaching program? And, it was a win-win because they were able to get rid of the inventory and they were able to increase the value of their program.
And the thing is, too, I think, especially if you have something that you're making money off of, it is better to try and increase people going in there. Or if the people in there do find the value in your free giveaway, maybe at some point later, you can put some energy to start selling it again, because at that point you have testimonials for it. You have people talking about and buzz being created about this product.
Yeah. So no, I think that's a great way to turn that article into something relevant for business. I think one of the issues that small businesses have, though, is that they don't understand their numbers well enough to be able to determine when it's time to axe a product or a service.
And that's the difference of knowing between your profit and your revenue.
Yes. So it's interesting because my news article this week, that was actually a great segue into what I'm going to talk about. The IRS releases, yes, I know it's painful. You don't like that word. The IRS releases tax statistical data for every year when tax returns are filed. And they just released the 2013 data. So one thing that I thought was pretty interesting, I was looking at the number of Schedule C businesses. So these are your sole proprietorship businesses. And I wanted to dig into their facts a little bit. So in 2013, there were 23.5 million sole proprietorship businesses that filed tax returns. 23.5 million.
Oof, okay.
Okay. So there are a lot of us out there. You are not alone. And those businesses generated $302 billion in profit.
So can we say that small business is a billion-dollar industry?
Oh, we are a multi-hundreds of billion-dollar industry. But now here's the thing that frightened me a little bit is that when I did the math, right, and I divided the total amount of profit divided by the number of Schedule C businesses.
Billions.
Right, because you're like billions. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, until you divide that by 23.5 million small businesses, the average profit was $12,800.
Profit. Well, that's the money we pay taxes on.
Yes, that's the money we pay taxes on. The average revenue was $56,146.
Okay.
So it tells me a couple things. First of all, we have a lot of expenses.
Or we're reporting a lot of expenses. One of the two.
Right, we're reporting a lot of expenses. And I'm hoping, it doesn't tell us if those businesses are part-time or full-time. It just tells us that they're businesses. God, I hope they're not full-time. Because $12,800 in profit isn't a lot.
Now, I'm going to say this, and I think you're going to agree with me. I think most small business people, and this goes back to our definition, which is really, a sole proprietor or maybe a small partnership, a very small business, does everything in their power to get that number to zero.
Yes. Yes. And that's actually our question of the week.
Okay.
So this week's question of the week comes from Holly. And if you would like to leave a question of the week, you can go to smallbizlife.com and you can click on contact and you can fill out the form. Or you can leave a message on the hotline, which is 860-580-9620.
And if you do that, make sure to leave your name and a way for us to contact you back in case the audio doesn't come through. And that we can give you a little shout out as well.
Yeah, and sometimes too, I love to follow up with people on this. Holly and I actually had a great discussion after I received her question. So Holly asked, I have a question about writing off expenses. I'm a realtor and I'm not sure if I'm writing too much off or not. I've gotten advice to spend so much I write off almost all my income, and that sounds kind of silly to me. I want to be able to use my income to help our buying power. Example, when we buy a house for ourselves. I'm still in the building stage of my career, so I know my expenses are higher right now, but I'm not sure if I'm doing a poor job of budgeting for my business or if I'm at an okay place.
I would say yes to that. I think most of us are really bad at budgeting for our businesses.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think especially when you're in startup mode.
Because you don't know even what you should be spending money on, or you're guessing and overspending probably where you don't need to, and underspending where you should be spending money.
Right. No, I agree with that. I think a lot of us, when we first start our businesses, you see all the shiny technology and all the tools, and you kind of go on a buying spree, and then you realize, oh wait, I don't really need that, or I'm not really using that.
Well, it was like years ago. I remember I had a realtor approach me to build a website for them, and he ended up going with someone else, and I didn't understand why. The thing was, one, I thought my site looked better than their site, which is to me important, and I think to some people. But the reason he went with them, I didn't understand at the time, but I get it now, was they created content and they had the content changed on his site, so he didn't have to spend time maintaining the site because he was a madman for selling homes.
Right.
And at the time, I thought he was silly because, wow, you can build up your expertise, you build up your renown online. But he didn't need to do that because he was selling a lot of houses. He just needed the content to help people find him. Because once they met him and worked with him, he was a great realtor and people would buy stuff and spend stuff.
Yep. And I think that's a good use of money, right? I'm currently working with a content writer because I hate writing content. So that frees up my time to do what I'm good at and hire someone to do what they're good at. You really need to look at what your strengths and your weaknesses are and determine what you should outsource and what you should keep in-house.
And as you make more money, you really have to give up some things that you might like doing to focus on what makes the money.
Right.
Either that or bring people in to help you make more money, because you have to give at that point, because it's about either making the revenue or it's about writing marketing copy, which some people might like to do even though that's indirectly how they make money. But, they need to be focused on closing sales, not actually writing the marketing.
Right. So I want to go back to Holly's first question because she originally asked about whether or not she should spend all of her revenue, right? So essentially, she gets to the point where she has no profit.
So, wow. And from what I hear from most of the small business people I talk to, that's a great idea. What do you think?
That is not a good idea.
Oh, come on. I don't want to pay taxes on that.
All right. So here's the thing. If you spend all of your revenue on things that you don't necessarily need because you don't want to pay taxes.
Yeah.
How much money do you have left in the bank?
0.
Okay. And God forbid, you charge any of it, you might actually have debt because of it.
Yes.
Okay. Now, say you keep some of the profit, okay? Now, typically in a small business startup, you're going to pay, say, 25 to 30% in taxes. Okay? Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know that hurts your brain. I understand. However, that means that you get to keep 70 to 75% of every dollar. So the thing is, you can spend all the money on things that you may not need just so you don't have any profit, or you could pay taxes and keep 70 cents on the dollar. I personally would rather have 70 cents than 0.
Me personally, right now, I'm Googling to find out who that candidate was that was talking about burning the tax code. And I think it's seems like a simpler solution to me. But
no politics.
No politics.
No politics. So, Holly, after we went through all this, my short answer is that if you're going into business with the idea of not making any profit, there are a lot of things you could do to make more money. You could go be a greeter at Walmart and make more money. You could work at McDonald's and make more money. But, the thing is, I don't want you to work really, really hard to make no profit. So I want to thank Holly for submitting that question. And again, if you want to submit your own question, you can go to smallbizlife.com and click on contact, or you can call the hotline number 860-580-9620. So I just want you to remember, why are you in business? Most of us are in business because we want to make some money.
Yes.
Whether that money is to support your family or buy a home or pay off debt or have extra money for vacation or extra money for your kids' activities, you can't do that if you don't make any profit. Okay? And yes, you're going to have to pay some taxes.
Yes.
But if you spend it all on things for your business so that you don't pay any taxes, then there's no money left for you. All right, so this week's app of the week. Since we're talking about profit, and a lot of small businesses don't even know whether or not they have a profit, what is this week's app of the week?
It is Wave Apps. Essentially, accounting software online available on iOS. Or I believe they have segments. They have smaller apps that feed into it, but it's really a web-based system that you can log on to from any operating system and do your accounting work.
Yeah, and the great thing about Wave is free if you don't have payroll. It's free.
I was just going to write that off my taxes.
Yeah, there's nothing to write off because it's free. Wave is a great alternative to QuickBooks or FreshBooks. It will actually allow you to hook up your bank feed so you can download all your transactions so you're not manually entering things. You can invoice clients. You can keep track of your bills. You can accept credit cards through the system. There are a number of third-party apps that work with Wave that you can plug into it.
And it has a pretty interesting list of integrations as well, too. So you can try and automate the business money side of it as much as you can.
If you're looking for an accounting system, that's not going to take a lot of work on your end. Check out Wave. And if you have any questions about it, shoot a question over on the website.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm so excited about this segment. I really am, because I love working with other small businesses to help them get their message out. So our tip of the week this week is brought to you by Jen Moff. Jen is phenomenal to work with. I've worked with her personally. You can find Jen at thejenmoff.com. We'll put that in the show notes. And here's Jen's tip.
You have attracted the work that you're doing right now in your life. Your soul is ready for it. Sometimes when we start manifesting our dreams, we get so excited and eager that we forget what we're supposed to be doing. So my tip today is around creation and consuming. When we first start a business, we think, I've got to learn so much. I've got to learn about this. I've got to learn about that. I need to know about copywriting and email lists and blogging and podcasting and all the other things out there that exist that you have to do. And you can't just do it because you think, I don't know how. Here's the thing. There has to be a balance between what you're consuming and what you're creating. Because what you are designed to do in partnership with the divine is to create. It can get very easy to get sucked up into the consuming machine, reading all sorts of different blogs and articles and newsletters to learn more, be more, grow more, and you get as caught up in the consumption and you forget what brought you to this in the beginning. So my tip is to remember to keep an equal balance between what you consume and what you're creating. Even when it may feel uncomfortable that you don't know enough or you aren't qualified, you have to start getting in the practice of creation. You can learn a little bit more about me at my website, thejenmoff.com. You can also find me at that same handle, The Jen Moff, on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest.
I really love Jen's tip because this actually came in as Jeff and I are actually in the middle of a 90-day no input challenge.
Insane course, yes.
Yeah. And shout out to Jamie Masters at The Eventual Millionaire. If you're not listening to Jamie's podcast, go check it out.
Yes.
It's awesome. But so Jamie has challenged us to not read any business books, not listen to any business podcasts, except for mine. You can listen to mine. But basically, to try to stop all that input, right? Because as small business owners, we're constantly like, how can we do this better?
Yeah.
And so we read a lot of business books. We listen to a lot of business podcasts. You're on the web reading blogs.
On the theory side of it instead of the practice side of it.
Right, exactly. So Jamie's challenge was no input for 90 days. Unless it's something that you can use that week. So if you're trying to grow your email list, you can do as much research as you want about growing your email list. But I got to tell you that for me, it's worked really well.
I want to say in general, this is my thought on it is obviously we're in the middle of this portion, but it is good to learn stuff. But I think the ultimate takeaway is you need to budget your time that you spend on those extra activities because they're not really related to your business. Now, they might help grow your business ultimately in the long run. However, you need to schedule time to do those activities and stick within them, whether they're inputs for your business or for your life or for just news or whatever. Because especially with today, with all of the data out there that you can get your hands on very quickly, all of the information that exists, you will be crushed. You will never get anything done.
No, that is very true. What do they call it? Paralysis by analysis?
Well, I think that's a portion of it. That's when after you've read the book and you start trying to crunch the numbers that the person's talking about in the book, and you spend 17 months working on a special spreadsheet to look at your business the way he looked at his to make all of his money. But ultimately, he made all of his money by people like you buying his book.
This is very true. That's one thing I really liked about the 7-Day Startup is like, stop reading, stop analyzing, stop listening to podcasts, start your business, go, right?
Yes, or, John Acuff is like, just do. Write out all your fears, get them out on a piece of paper and throw them away and just start doing stuff.
Right.
Because ultimately, we think about why we should, why we shouldn't. And then, well, if we start this, we should do this right, and it's very hard to get anything out there. Like either my first podcast or this podcast, this podcast getting up and running is a lot quicker process because there's a lot less of me sitting there going, well, let me play with the audio equipment some more. Let me try some editing techniques this way and that way. And there's more of just, okay, now let's start producing the show.
Yeah, because I think we came up with this idea around the middle of June.
Yes.
And I think that we really got fired up on it.
Because it was Podcast New England.
Yeah, it was Podcast New England. And I think we really started working on it about the middle of July.
Mm-hmm. And we're doing a lot of other stuff too between my podcast, your teaching, and the stuff you're already doing on the web. This is an additional thing, but we got up and running, and this isn't like, wow, look at them, they're so awesome because they're doing so much. But we're trying to create the content and not waste our life doing every bit of our business.
Right. And I think the one thing that really helped with this project over the first podcast was we outsourced the website.
Yeah.
Which was a really hard thing for me to do since you're a web developer.
Yes.
But we outsourced the website to Geek Girl and Company.
Who did a great job.
Who did a great job. Shout out to Lena. And that took a lot off our plates.
Yeah.
Where if we had done the website ourselves, I don't think we'd have a podcast yet.
No. I mean, we'd be going back and forth a lot more. And the worst thing is you over tweak when you can do something and it's yours. Mm-hmm. So like the problem was when I was working on mine, I spent way too much time going back and forth and just tweaking little things instead of saying that's good. And you hear this a lot from a lot of the thought leaders that we've listened to, like Michael Hyatt and, all of these people
Dan Miller,
all of them are like, it doesn't need to be perfect. You can't make it perfect. Don't try and make it perfect. Make it quality product and get it out there.
Right. Yeah. Dan Miller tells a story when he released his first product. It was photocopied in a 3-ring binder. And he knew that there were errors in it, and he's like, "We'll fix it in the next edition. We got to get it out. The message is good, the content is good. You got to get it out there."
And part of it, goes back to something we'll talk about more in another episode, which is knowing your avatar and what is their tolerance for mistakes. If you're creating a product about, let's say, grammar, and you're selling it to people who teach or edit and stuff like that, probably have a much higher threshold for mistakes within the content itself. But if you're reaching out to landscapers, they might have a bigger tolerance to allowing certain kinds of even editorial mistakes in writing.
Right. And they might not notice them.
Yes.
Whereas if you're marketing to editors and copywriters, they're probably going to
certain
notice.
People, just really hyper-focus on those kind of things. Not that I'm looking at anyone.
What? No. I'm not like that at all.
I was looking at the microphone, not you.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. So we mentioned a lot of stuff in the episode today. If you go to smallbizlife.com, everything that we talked about will be in the show notes. So everybody we made reference to today, we'll make sure to link you to their websites or to their products. And I'm also going to put, I know you're not going to want to look at this, but I'll put a link to the IRS income statistics. I know that's good bedtime reading. That'll put you right to sleep.
I almost fell asleep as soon as you got to profit stats. I know, and we'll put a link to Tech Republic to the Amazon Axis Fire Phone article that they put out, which if you're interested in technology, it's a good place to watch. You might not be interested in all the articles, but I subscribe to their newsletter, and when they have interesting articles, I click through them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for listening this week, and we'll see you next time.
And remember, if you want to help support the show, you can go to
smallbizlife.com/Amazon.
And it's a way to help support the show and not to give us any money directly, but Amazon will be forced to take some of that money they save for getting rid of the Fire Phone, and they can then give it to us.
That's right, because we've got, there's a lot more cost involved with podcasting than people realize.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be great. And everybody shops at Amazon, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think pretty much. So, but they're not buying the Fire Phone. They're buying everything else.
They're buying everything else but the Fire Phone.
That's right.
On Amazon.
All right. Have a great week. We'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to Small Biz Life. If you enjoyed the show, please take a few minutes to rate and review the show on iTunes or Stitcher. Please visit smallbizlife.com to view today's show notes, take this week's poll, join the Facebook community, follow us on Twitter, or submit a question for the mailbag. Support the show by checking the resources page or by going to smallbizlife.com/Amazon whenever you shop.
This was Small Biz Life. This was Small Biz Life.